Lieutenant Sarah Chen had always known she was different from other girls growing up in small-town Oregon. While her classmates spent weekends at the mall or painting their nails, Sarah was scaling rock faces and swimming laps in the freezing Pacific Ocean. Her father, a retired Marine, had raised her with the same discipline and expectations he would have given a son. When other parents worried about their daughters walking home alone after dark, Sarah's father taught her how to disable an attacker in 3 moves. The military had been calling to Sarah since she was 12 years old, watching documentaries about special operations forces late into the night. She studied every mission, every tactic, every success and failure of elite units around the world. Her bedroom walls were covered not with boy band posters, but with maps of famous military campaigns and photographs of decorated soldiers. Her friends thought she was crazy when she announced at 16 that she planned to become a Navy SEAL. Girls can't be SEALs. Her best friend Michelle had laughed during lunch one Tuesday afternoon. That's like saying you want to be an astronaut or the president. Sarah had simply smiled and continued eating her sandwich. She knew something Michelle didn't know. The Navy had just announced they were opening all combat roles to women, including the elite SEAL teams. It would be an uphill battle, but Sarah thrived on challenges that others considered impossible. The journey to becoming a SEAL began long before she ever stepped foot in basic training. Sarah spent her high school years preparing both mentally and physically for what lay ahead. She woke up at 4:30 every morning to run 5 miles before school, regardless of weather. Rain, snow, or blazing heat, nothing stopped her daily routine. After school, she would spend hours in the gym, focusing on functional strength training rather than appearance. While her classmates worried about fitting into prom dresses, Sarah was perfecting her pull-ups and learning to hold her breath underwater for increasingly longer periods. Her academic performance was equally impressive. Sarah maintained a 4.0 GPA while taking advanced placement courses in mathematics, science, and foreign languages. She understood that modern warfare required brains as much as brawn, and she intended to excel in both areas. During her senior year, she enrolled in additional courses at the local community college, studying tactical analysis and military history. The physical preparation was brutal, but Sarah welcomed the pain. Every morning before her run, she would remind herself of her goal, to become the first female Navy SEAL from her hometown and prove that determination could overcome any obstacle. She trained in all weather conditions, often running through storms that kept other people indoors. Her father sometimes worried she was pushing herself too hard, but he also recognized the fierce determination that burned in her eyes. Swimming became Sarah's specialty. The Pacific Ocean near her home was notoriously cold and rough, with currents that challenged even experienced swimmers. While other teenagers avoided the water except during the warmest summer days, Sarah was in the ocean year-round. She learned to navigate by landmarks when fog rolled in, to time her breathing with the rhythm of the waves, and to remain calm when caught in dangerous riptides. Her high school swimming coach, Mrs. Pletton Rodriguez, had been a competitive swimmer in college and recognized Sarah's exceptional talent. "I've never seen anyone with your combination of speed and endurance," she told Sarah after watching her complete a particularly grueling training session. "You could probably get a scholarship to any university in the country." But Sarah had no interest in college swimming scholarships. Her sights were set on something far more challenging and meaningful. She spent countless hours researching SEAL training, reading every book and watching every documentary she could find about the notorious BUD/S program, Basic Underwater Demolition/SEAL Training. The statistics were intimidating. Roughly 80% of candidates failed to complete the program, and those were men who had already proven themselves in the regular Navy. During her junior year, Sarah began reaching out to former SEALs and military recruiters to learn more about what the training would really be like. Most were encouraging but honest about the enormous challenges she would face. One retired SEAL, Master Chief Peterson, became an unofficial mentor after meeting Sarah at a military career fair. "The physical training is just the beginning," he told her during one of their conversations at a local coffee shop. "What really breaks people is the mental pressure. You'll be sleep-deprived, cold, wet, sandy, and hungry for months. The instructors will do everything they can to make you quit. They'll tell you that you don't belong there, that you're wasting everyone's time, that you should give up and do something easier. Sarah listened intently, taking mental notes. "What kept you going when you wanted to quit?" she asked. "Remembering why I started," Peterson replied. "Having a purpose bigger than yourself. The guys who make it through aren't necessarily the strongest or the fastest. They're the ones who refuse to give up no matter what." That conversation became a turning point for Sarah. She began to understand that her preparation needed to be as much mental as physical. She started practicing meditation and visualization techniques, imagining herself successfully completing each phase of SEAL training. She read books about prisoners of war who had survived torture and interrogation, studying their mental strategies for enduring unimaginable hardship. Her parents had mixed feelings about Sarah's chosen path. Her mother, a nurse, worried constantly about the dangers her daughter would face in special operations. Her father was proud but concerned about the additional challenges Sarah would encounter as a pioneer in a traditionally male field. They had long conversations about whether she was prepared for the scrutiny and pressure that would come with being one of the first women to attempt SEAL training. "Are you sure this is what you really want?" her mother asked one evening as they sat on the back porch watching the sunset. "There are so many other ways to serve your country that wouldn't put you in such dangerous situations." Sarah had been expecting this conversation.
"Mom, I understand that you're worried, but this isn't just something I want to do. It's something I need to do."
"I've been preparing for this my entire life. I know it won't be easy, especially as a woman, but someone has to be first. I'd rather try and fail than spend my whole life wondering what might have been." Her mother nodded slowly, recognizing the determination in her daughter's voice that had been there since childhood. Sarah had always been the kid who chose the hardest path. Whether it was taking advanced classes, climbing the tallest tree, or swimming farther out into the ocean than anyone else dared. The summer before her senior year, Sarah attended an intensive pre-military training camp designed to prepare young people for service academy appointments and special operations careers. The program was run by former military instructors and designed to simulate some of the challenges participants would face in actual military training. For 2 weeks, Sarah and 49 other teenagers endured dawn-to-dusk physical training, obstacle courses, survival exercises, and leadership challenges. It was Sarah's first real taste of military-style training, and she loved every minute of it. While other participants complained about the early wake-up calls, the cold showers, and the relentless pace, Sarah thrived in the structured environment. She quickly emerged as a leader among her peers, helping struggling teammates and maintaining a positive attitude even during the most challenging exercises. On the final day of the camp, participants were required to complete a grueling endurance test that included a 5-mile run, a 2-mile swim, and an obstacle course, all while carrying a 40-pound pack. Several participants dropped out before finishing, and others barely managed to cross the finish line. Sarah not only completed the challenge, but did so in the second-best time of all 50 participants, finishing just 30 seconds behind a young man who had been training for years to attend West Point. The camp instructors were impressed with Sarah's performance and recommended her for early recruitment by military academies. However, Sarah had already made her decision about how she wanted to serve. She would enlist in the Navy immediately after high school and begin working toward her goal of becoming a SEAL. During her senior year, Sarah continued her intensive training while also taking on leadership roles at school. She became captain of the swim team, leading them to a state championship, and was elected vice president of the student council. Her teachers and classmates began to see her as someone destined for greatness, though few truly understood the magnitude of what she was planning to attempt. The military recruiter, Petty Officer First Class Johnson, had been working with Sarah since her junior year and was amazed by her preparation and dedication. "In 20 years of recruiting, I've never met anyone as focused and determined as you are," he told her during one of their meetings. "You're going to face challenges that no woman has ever faced before in the military. But if anyone can succeed, it's you." Sarah appreciated the encouragement, but she also understood the weight of what lay ahead. She would be breaking barriers and paving the way for other women who might follow in her footsteps. The responsibility was enormous, but it also fueled her determination to succeed. As graduation approached, Sarah felt ready for the next phase of her journey. She had spent 4 years preparing her mind and body for the challenges ahead. Her physical fitness was at an elite level, her academic knowledge was comprehensive, and her mental toughness had been tested and proven. She understood that the real test was still to come, but she felt confident that she had laid the foundation for success. The night before graduation, Sarah stood on the beach near her home, looking out at the Pacific Ocean that had been her training ground for so many years. The waves crashed against the shore with familiar rhythm, and she could feel the salt spray on her face. Tomorrow, she would walk across the stage and receive her diploma. But more importantly, she would be one step closer to achieving her dream of becoming a Navy SEAL. As she turned to walk back home, Sarah carried with her the quiet confidence that comes from years of preparation and unwavering commitment to a goal. She knew that many people doubted whether a woman could successfully complete SEAL training, but she also knew that someone had to be first. She was ready to take on that challenge and prove that courage, determination, and skill were not limited by gender. 8 weeks into basic training at Naval Station Great Lakes, Sarah had already distinguished herself as one of the top recruits in her division. The transformation from civilian to sailor was challenging for everyone, but Sarah adapted quickly to the rigorous schedule and military discipline. While other recruits struggled with the early morning wake-ups and constant physical training, Sarah thrived in the structured environment that reminded her of her years of self-imposed preparation. Her recruit division commander, Petty Officer First Class Martinez, had initially been skeptical when he learned that one of his recruits intended to pursue SEAL training. He had seen countless young sailors with dreams of special operations who couldn't handle the basic demands of Navy life. However, Sarah's performance during the first weeks of training changed his perspective entirely. "Chen, front and center," Martinez called out one morning after physical training. The other recruits watched nervously as Sarah approached, wondering if she was in trouble. Instead, Martinez held up a piece of paper with test scores. "Congratulations! You just scored the highest on the physical fitness assessment in the history of this training command, male or female." The announcement sent ripples through the division. Sarah had completed more push-ups, sit-ups, and pull-ups than any recruit in recent memory, and her run time would have been competitive at the college varsity level. More importantly, she had achieved these scores while helping struggling teammates improve their own performance. Word of Sarah's exceptional abilities spread quickly through the training facility. Other division commanders began stopping by to watch her during physical training sessions, curious to see the female recruit who was supposedly outperforming everyone else. Some were supportive and encouraging, while others remained skeptical about whether a woman belonged in special operations. Chief Warrant Officer Thompson, who had served with SEAL teams during his 20-year career, made a point of observing Sarah during a particularly challenging water survival exercise. The recruits were required to tread water for 30 minutes while wearing full uniforms and boots, a task that eliminated many aspiring sailors before they ever made it to advanced training. Sarah approached the exercise with the same methodical preparation she brought to everything else. She had been training for this specific challenge for years, spending hours in her hometown's community pool practicing treading water with weighted vests. When the instructor gave the signal to enter the water, Sarah slipped in smoothly and immediately found her rhythm. As the minutes ticked by, other recruits began to struggle. Some were eliminated after 10 minutes, gasping for air and unable to maintain their position. Others lasted 15 or 20 minutes before being pulled from the water by safety divers. Sarah remained calm and controlled, moving with efficient strokes that conserved energy while keeping her head comfortably above water. At the 25-minute mark, only 3 recruits remained in the water: Sarah and 2 male recruits who had been competitive swimmers in high school. The spectators on the pool deck had grown quiet, watching intently as the final minutes counted down. Both of the male recruits were showing signs of fatigue, their movements becoming more erratic and their breathing more labored. Sarah, however, appeared as calm and controlled as she had at the beginning of the exercise. Her breathing was steady, her movements efficient, and her expression focused but relaxed. When the 30-minute buzzer finally sounded, she was the only recruit who looked like she could have continued for another 30 minutes. Chief Thompson was impressed enough to pull Sarah aside after the exercise. "I've been watching SEAL candidates train for 15 years, he told her quietly. "You've got something special. The question is whether you can handle what comes next." "What do you mean, Chief?" Sarah asked, toweling off her hair. "The physical training is just the beginning," Thompson explained. "When you get to Bud/S, they're going to test your mind as much as your body. They're going to try to break you down psychologically, and as a woman, you're going to face challenges that no male candidate has ever dealt with. Are you prepared for that? Sarah had been thinking about this question for years. I understand that I'll be under extra scrutiny, Chief, but I've been preparing for that too. I know that some people don't think women belong in special operations, and I know I'll have to prove myself every single day. I'm ready for that challenge. Thompson nodded slowly. He had seen plenty of confident recruits who crumbled under the pressure of advanced training, but there was something different about Sarah's confidence. It wasn't based on arrogance or bravado. It was the quiet certainty of someone who had tested themselves repeatedly and knew exactly what they were capable of. The remaining weeks of basic training passed quickly for Sarah. She continued to excel in every area, from academic classes to practical exercises. Her leadership abilities became apparent during group projects and team challenges, where she consistently helped struggling teammates while maintaining her own high standards of performance. During one particularly memorable exercise, the recruits were divided into teams and given a complex navigation challenge that required them to work together to reach several checkpoints within a strict time limit. Sarah's team included 2 recruits who had been struggling with the physical demands of training and another who had difficulty with the academic material. Rather than viewing her teammates as a liability, Sarah saw the exercise as an opportunity to demonstrate the leadership skills that would be essential in special operations. She took time to explain the navigation techniques to the recruit who was struggling academically, helped pace the 2 less physically fit teammates, and kept morale high even when they fell behind schedule. With 5 minutes remaining and 1 checkpoint still to reach, Sarah's team was running significantly behind the others. The struggling recruits were exhausted and ready to give up, but Sarah refused to leave anyone behind. She redistributed the team's equipment, taking extra weight herself, and found a more efficient route to the final checkpoint. When the time buzzer sounded, Sarah's team crossed the finish line just seconds before the deadline, with all members accounted for. They hadn't won the exercise, but they had achieved something more valuable. They had succeeded as a team and proven that no one would be left behind. The exercise instructor, Gunner's mate Chief Phillips, gathered all the teams afterward to discuss the lessons learned. He pointed to Sarah's team as an example of effective leadership under pressure. Team leaders, he announced, need to understand that mission success sometimes means accepting a slower pace to ensure everyone makes it home. Recruit Chen demonstrated today what real leadership looks like. As basic training neared its end, Sarah began preparing for the next phase of her journey, requesting assignment to a ship where she could gain the experience necessary to qualify for SEAL training. The Navy required all special operations candidates to serve successfully in the regular fleet before attempting BUD/S, a policy designed to ensure that only mature, experienced sailors were selected for the most demanding training programs. Sarah had researched various ship assignments and requested duty aboard a destroyer that would provide opportunities for advanced seamanship training and leadership development. She wanted to serve in a position where she could continue developing her skills while proving herself to the broader Navy community. Her request was approved, and she received orders to report to USS Fitzgerald, a guided missile destroyer homeported in Norfolk, Virginia. The ship had a reputation for excellence and a commanding officer who was known for developing junior sailors into future leaders. It was exactly the kind of assignment Sarah had hoped for. The night before graduation from basic training, Sarah called her parents to share the news about her ship assignment. Her mother was relieved that Sarah would be serving on a ship rather than immediately going into combat training, while her father was proud that his daughter had earned such a prestigious assignment. "I always knew you'd succeed," her father told her during their conversation. "But what you've accomplished in just 8 weeks is beyond what I ever imagined. You're not just representing yourself anymore. You're showing the whole Navy what women are capable of achieving." Sarah understood the weight of that responsibility, but she also felt energized by it. Every barrier she broke and every stereotype she shattered made it easier for the women who would follow in her footsteps. She was no longer just pursuing her own dream. She was paving the way for an entire generation of female sailors who might someday serve in special operations. At the basic training graduation ceremony, Sarah was selected as the honor recruit for her division, and recognition given to the top performer in each training group. As she stood at attention while receiving the award, Sarah thought about how far she had come from the small-town girl who had dreamed of becoming a SEAL while watching documentaries late at night. The real challenges still lay ahead. Ship duty would test her seamanship skills and leadership abilities in real-world conditions. After that, if she qualified, would come the ultimate test, Bud/S training, where she would face physical and mental challenges that had broken thousands of highly qualified male candidates. But standing on the graduation platform that morning, wearing her dress blue uniform with the honor recruit ribbon, Sarah felt ready for whatever came next. She had proven to herself and others that she belonged in the Navy, and she was determined to prove that she belonged among the elite warriors of the SEAL teams. The journey that had begun in a small Oregon town with a 12-year-old girl watching military documentaries was entering its most critical phase. Sarah Chen was no longer just a young woman with an impossible dream. She was a United States sailor with the skills, determination, and opportunity to make that dream a reality. 18 months aboard USS Fitzgerald transformed Sarah from a promising recruit into a seasoned sailor who had earned the respect of her shipmates and superiors. Her assignment as a quartermaster had given her extensive experience in navigation, seamanship, and watchstanding, all essential skills for special operations candidates. She had served in challenging conditions from the Arctic Circle to the Mediterranean, proving her competence in every situation the Navy could throw at her. Captain Rodriguez, the ship's commanding officer, had been initially skeptical when he learned that one of his junior sailors intended to pursue SEAL training. He had seen too many sailors who focused on future goals instead of excelling in their current position. However, Sarah's performance during her time aboard Fitzgerald changed his perspective completely. During a particularly challenging deployment to the Persian Gulf, Sarah had demonstrated exceptional leadership during a complex night navigation exercise that tested the entire bridge team. When equipment failures threatened to put the ship in danger, Sarah's quick thinking and navigation expertise had helped avoid a potential collision with a merchant vessel in the crowded shipping lanes. Chen has the kind of instinctive seamanship that can't be taught, Captain Rodriguez wrote in her performance evaluation. She combines technical competence with sound judgment under pressure, qualities that will serve her well regardless of what path her career takes. More importantly for Sarah's future goals, she had earned the strong recommendation of Master Chief Petty Officer Harrison, the ship's senior enlisted sailor and a former special warfare operator who had served with SEAL teams earlier in his career. Harrison had been watching Sarah's development carefully, knowing that his endorsement would carry significant weight when she applied for special operations training. "You've got what it takes," Harrison told Sarah during a quiet conversation on the ship's bridge during a midnight watch. "I've served with some of the toughest operators in the Navy, and you've got the same combination of mental toughness and tactical intelligence that makes great SEALs. The question isn't whether you can handle the training, it's whether the training program is ready for someone like you." Sarah appreciated the confidence, but she knew that earning respect aboard ship was just the beginning. The real test would come at Bud/S, where she would face 6 months of the most demanding military training in the world. She had spent her off-duty time aboard Fitzgerald continuing to prepare, maintaining peak physical condition despite the limited exercise opportunities on a warship. The ship's small gym became Sarah's second home during deployment. She modified her training routine to work within the constraints of limited space and equipment, focusing on functional fitness exercises that would translate directly to SEAL training requirements. Her shipmates often found her in the gym at unusual hours, working out before early morning watches or after long duty days. Her dedication didn't go unnoticed. Several of her shipmates began joining her for workouts, inspired by her example and curious about the training methods she used. Sarah was always willing to share knowledge and help others improve their fitness, but she also maintained the higher standards necessary for her unique goals. During a port visit to Bahrain, Sarah had the opportunity to observe some actual SEAL operations when Fitzgerald provided support for a special operations mission in the area. She watched as the SEAL team prepared for their mission with methodical precision, checking and rechecking equipment, reviewing intelligence, and coordinating with support elements. The team leader, Lieutenant Commander Walsh, noticed Sarah's intense interest in their preparations. After learning about her goals, he spent several hours discussing what SEAL training and operations were really like from the perspective of someone who had lived through both. "The training is designed to eliminate people who don't have what it takes," Walsh explained as they watched his team conduct pre-mission rehearsals. But it's not just about physical strength or endurance. The guys who make it through are the ones who can think clearly under stress, work effectively as part of a team, and never give up no matter how bad things get. He paused, watching Sarah's expression carefully. As a woman, you're going to face additional challenges that no male candidate has ever dealt with. There will be people who want you to fail not because of anything personal, but because they believe women don't belong in special operations. You'll need to be better than good. You'll need to be exceptional. Sarah had heard similar warnings before, but hearing them from an active SEAL team leader carried extra weight. "I understand that I'll be under extra scrutiny," she replied. "But I've been preparing for that reality for years. I know that I'll have to prove myself every single day." Walsh nodded approvingly. "That attitude will serve you well. When you get to Bud/S, remember that the instructors aren't your enemies. They're testing you because lives depend on making sure only the best candidates make it through. Embrace the process, learn from every challenge, and never let them see you quit." The conversation with Walsh reinforced Sarah's determination to pursue SEAL training, but it also helped her understand the broader implications of what she was attempting. She wouldn't just be trying to complete one of the military's most demanding training programs. She would be breaking barriers and potentially opening doors for future generations of women in special operations. As Fitzgerald's deployment neared its end, Sarah began the formal application process for Bud/S. The paperwork was extensive, requiring detailed physical fitness assessments, psychological evaluations, medical examinations, and recommendations from multiple levels of her chain of command. Each step of the process was designed to identify and eliminate candidates who weren't fully committed or properly prepared. The physical fitness requirements alone eliminated many aspiring candidates. Sarah had to complete a battery of tests within strict time limits: push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, a long-distance run, and a challenging swim in full uniform. The standards were demanding enough that many candidates who considered themselves physically fit failed to qualify. Sarah approached the fitness tests with the same methodical preparation she brought to everything else. She had been training specifically for these requirements since high school and knew exactly what she needed to achieve. When test day arrived, she not only met all the minimum standards but exceeded them by significant margins, posting scores that would have been competitive for male candidates with years of preparation. The psychological evaluation proved more challenging in unexpected ways. The Navy psychologist, Dr. Martinez, had extensive experience evaluating special operations candidates, but Sarah was his first female applicant for SEAL training. His questions explored not just her mental resilience and stress tolerance, but also her understanding of the unique challenges she would face as a woman in a traditionally male environment. "What motivates you to pursue this path when there are so many other ways to serve your country?" Dr. Martinez asked during one of their sessions. Sarah had anticipated this question and had thought carefully about her answer. "I'm not doing this just to prove a point or break barriers, although I understand that will be part of what happens. I'm pursuing SEAL training because I believe I have the skills and dedication to excel in special operations, and because I want to serve in the most demanding and meaningful way possible." She continued, "I also understand that being first comes with extra responsibilities. If I succeed, I'll be opening doors for other women who might want to follow this path. If I fail, it might close those doors for a long time. That's additional pressure, but it's also additional motivation." Dr. Martinez was impressed by Sarah's thoughtful and realistic approach to the challenges ahead. His report noted her exceptional mental resilience, clear understanding of the demands she would face, and mature perspective on her role as a pioneer in a new area of military service. The final step in the application process was a review by a board of senior officers, including several with special operations backgrounds. The board members had access to all of Sarah's performance records, test scores, and recommendations, but they also conducted a personal interview to assess her motivation and readiness. Commander Stevens, who chaired the review board, had served as a SEAL team leader for 12 years before moving to a staff position. He understood better than most what successful SEAL candidates needed to possess beyond just physical fitness and technical skills. "Petty Officer Chen," he began, "your record is exceptional, and your recommendations are outstanding. but I need to ask you directly. Are you prepared for the reality that you may be the only woman in a class of potentially hostile male candidates? Are you ready to deal with instructors who may doubt whether you belong there? Sarah met his gaze steadily. Sir, I've been the only woman in challenging situations before, and I've dealt with people who doubted my abilities. I've learned that the best response is consistent performance that speaks louder than any words. I'm confident that my preparation and dedication will carry me through whatever challenges await. Commander Stevens exchanged glances with the other board members. They had interviewed hundreds of SEAL candidates over the years, and they recognized the quiet confidence of someone who had been tested and proven themselves under pressure. 3 days later, Sarah received the news she had been waiting for since childhood. Her application for Bud/S training had been approved. She would report to Naval Amphibious Base Coronado in California in 6 weeks to begin the most challenging chapter of her military career. The notification came via official message while Fitzgerald was tied up at the Norfolk Pier, preparing for the crew's post-deployment leave period. Sarah read the message 3 times to make sure she wasn't misunderstanding, then walked to a quiet corner of the ship to call her parents with the news. I got in, she told her father simply when he answered the phone. I'm going to Bud/S. The silence on the other end of the line lasted so long that Sarah wondered if the call had been dropped. Finally, her father's voice came through thick with emotion. I'm so proud of you, Sarah. You've worked so hard for this opportunity, and you've earned every bit of it. Her mother came on the line moments later, and Sarah could hear both excitement and worry in her voice. We believe in you completely, her mother said. Just remember that we love you regardless of what happens next. Sarah understood what her mother meant. Bud/S had a failure rate of roughly 80%, meaning that most candidates who entered the program would not complete it successfully. Even with all her preparation and experience, there were no guarantees about the outcome. But as Sarah stood on the deck of USS Fitzgerald, looking out at the Norfolk Harbor, where her Navy career had truly begun, she felt ready for the ultimate test. She had spent years preparing her mind and body for this moment. She had proven herself in basic training and during challenging deployments. She had earned the respect and recommendations of experienced sailors and officers who understood what success in special operations required. Most importantly, she had developed the mental toughness and unwavering determination that would be essential during the dark moments that lay ahead. Bud/S would test every aspect of her preparation and commitment, but Sarah Chen was ready to prove that courage, skill, and determination were not limited by gender. The incident happened during Week 12 of Bud/S training, just 3 weeks before Hell Week, the notorious 5.5-day test of endurance that broke more candidates than any other part of the program. Sarah had not only survived the grueling first phase of training, but had emerged as one of the top performers in her class of 47 candidates. 23 had already dropped out, ringing the brass bell that signified their voluntary withdrawal from the program. Staff Sergeant Marcus Riley had been watching Sarah with growing resentment since the first day of training. A former Army Ranger who had transferred to the Navy specifically to become a Bud/S instructor, Riley represented everything Sarah had expected to encounter, but hoped she wouldn't have to face. He believed deeply that women had no place in special operations, and made no effort to hide his feelings. Riley's harassment had been subtle at first: extra scrutiny during inspections, slightly longer holding times during punishment exercises, and frequent comments about whether Sarah could keep up with real warriors. Other instructors had noticed his behavior, but the competitive and demanding nature of Bud/S training made it difficult to distinguish between normal training stress and targeted harassment. Sarah had endured Riley's treatment without complaint, understanding that showing any sign of being affected would validate his belief that women were too emotional for special operations. She had dealt with similar attitudes before, and knew that the best response was consistent excellence that could not be questioned or dismissed. The training evolution that morning was a timed obstacle course that every candidate had completed dozens of times. The course tested agility, strength, and mental focus under pressure, with strict time limits that eliminated candidates who couldn't perform at the required level. Sarah had consistently posted times in the top 5 of her class and held the course record for several obstacles. As the candidates prepared for their individual runs, Riley approached Sarah's position in line. His face wore the expression Sarah had come to know well. a mixture of contempt and anticipation, as if he was waiting for her to provide him with an excuse to eliminate her from the program. "Chen," he barked loud enough for nearby candidates to hear, "your gear inspection was substandard this morning. Drop and give me 50 push-ups." Sarah knew this was untrue. Her equipment had been meticulously prepared and inspected by multiple instructors without comment. But she also knew that arguing with an instructor during Bud/S was grounds for immediate dismissal. She dropped into position and began the push-ups without hesitation. "Faster, Chen," Riley shouted as she maintained a steady pace. "In real operations, your teammates won't wait for you to catch your breath. Maybe you should consider whether you're really cut out for this." Sarah continued the push-ups, focusing on maintaining perfect form despite her growing anger. Around her, other candidates watched nervously, knowing that they could be next if they showed any sign of supporting her or questioning Riley's commands. When she completed the 50th push-up, Sarah returned to attention, waiting for Riley's next command. Her breathing was controlled despite the extra exertion, and her expression remained neutral. She had learned long ago not to give men like Riley the satisfaction of seeing that their behavior affected her. "Your time starts now," Riley announced as Sarah approached the starting line for the obstacle course. "Let's see if you can actually perform when it matters." Sarah launched into the course with the fluid efficiency that had made her one of the standout performers in her class. She cleared the first obstacle, a 12-foot wall, in one smooth motion, then moved quickly to the rope climb. Her technique was textbook perfect, and her pace was aggressive without being reckless. Halfway through the course, Sarah was ahead of her best previous time. The other candidates and instructors watching from the sidelines could see that she was having an exceptional run. Even some of the instructors who had been skeptical about women in Bud/S were impressed by her performance under pressure. Riley, however, was growing more agitated as it became clear that Sarah was going to post an outstanding time despite his harassment. As she approached the final obstacle, a 30-foot rope traversal over a mud pit, he moved into position where she would have to pass him at the finish line. Sarah completed the rope traverse flawlessly and dropped to the ground just short of the finish line. As she took the final steps toward Riley, who was holding the stopwatch, he did something that shocked everyone present. Without warning, Riley reached out and grabbed a handful of Sarah's hair, yanking her head back violently. The motion was clearly visible to the 40-plus people watching the evolution, including senior instructors and visiting officers who had come to observe the training. "You think you're special because you can climb a rope, Chen?" Riley snarled, his face inches from hers. "You're nothing but a publicity stunt, and everyone here knows it." The training area fell completely silent. Sarah felt a surge of rage unlike anything she had experienced during her military career. But she also recognized that this was the moment she had been preparing for since childhood. How she responded in the next few seconds would define not just her own future, but potentially the future of women in special operations. Instead of reacting with emotion, Sarah drew on years of training and mental preparation. When she spoke, her voice was calm and controlled, but loud enough for everyone present to hear clearly. "Staff Sergeant Riley," she said, looking directly into his eyes, "you have just committed assault against a fellow service member in front of multiple witnesses. You have violated regulations regarding appropriate treatment of personnel under your command, and you have demonstrated conduct unbecoming of a petty officer and instructor." Riley's grip on her hair tightened, but Sarah continued speaking without flinching. "More importantly, you have shown that you lack the professional judgment and emotional control required of someone responsible for training Navy SEALs. If you cannot maintain discipline and follow regulations during a routine training exercise, how can you be trusted to make life-or-death decisions in combat?" The watching crowd remained frozen, unsure whether they were witnessing Sarah's elimination from the program or something else entirely. Riley's face was flushed with anger, but Sarah could see uncertainty beginning to creep into his expression as he realized that his actions had been witnessed by too many people to cover up or dismiss. "I recommend," Sarah continued, her voice still perfectly controlled, "that you release me immediately and report to your superior officer to explain why you felt it was appropriate to physically assault a candidate during a training evolution. I will be happy to provide a full account of this incident to any investigating officer who requests one." Master Chief Petty Officer Williams, the senior instructor present, had been too shocked to react immediately to Riley's assault. but Sarah's calm and professional response snapped him back to awareness of what was happening. Williams had 30 years of Navy experience and knew exactly what he had just witnessed. "Staff Sergeant Riley," Williams barked, his voice carrying absolute authority, "release that candidate immediately and step away from the training area. Report to Commander Peterson's office for immediate counseling." Riley's hand fell away from Sarah's hair as if he had been burned. The reality of what he had done was beginning to sink in, and he could see his career crumbling in real time. Assault of a subordinate, witnessed by multiple personnel, including senior officers, was the kind of career-ending mistake that the military had zero tolerance for. "Master Chief, I was just—" Riley began, but Williams cut him off immediately. "You were just ending your career, Staff Sergeant. Not another word until you're in front of the commanding officer." As Riley was escorted from the training area by 2 other instructors, Sarah remained at attention, waiting for instructions about whether to continue her obstacle course run or return to formation with the other candidates. Her heart was racing from adrenaline, but her breathing was controlled and her expression remained neutral. Master Chief Williams approached her with an expression that mixed concern, admiration, and professional respect. "Are you injured, Chen?" he asked quietly. "No, Master Chief," Sarah replied. "I am ready to continue training." Williams nodded slowly. He had been skeptical about women in Bud/S when Sarah first arrived, not because he doubted their capabilities, but because he worried about the cultural challenges they would face. Sarah's response to Riley's assault had just demonstrated the kind of mental toughness and professional judgment that made great SEALs. "Your time for the obstacle course was 2 minutes, 37 seconds, Williams announced to the group. "A new course record. Chen, return to formation. Everyone else, let's continue training." As Sarah rejoined her fellow candidates, several of them nodded respectfully. They had just witnessed something unprecedented. A candidate who had maintained perfect military bearing while being physically assaulted and had turned the situation into a demonstration of the leadership and professionalism that SEALs were supposed to embody. The investigation into Riley's conduct was swift and thorough. Multiple witnesses provided statements confirming Sarah's account of the incident. Security cameras had captured the entire encounter from multiple angles, leaving no doubt about what had occurred. Riley's previous comments and behavior toward Sarah were also documented, painting a clear picture of harassment that had escalated to assault. Within 72 hours, Staff Sergeant Riley had been removed from his instructor position, charged with assault under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and recommended for administrative separation from the Navy. His military career, which had spanned 12 years and included deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, was effectively over. More significantly for Sarah, the incident had demonstrated to her instructors, fellow candidates, and senior Navy leadership that she possessed the mental toughness and professional judgment necessary for special operations. Instead of being broken by harassment and assault, she had responded with the kind of calm leadership that SEALs were expected to display in the most challenging situations. Commander Peterson, who oversaw the Bud/S program, called Sarah to his office 2 days after the incident. She reported as ordered, unsure whether the meeting would result in commendation or elimination from the program. "Sit down, Chen," Peterson said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. "I want to discuss what happened with Staff Sergeant Riley." Sarah remained at attention until ordered to sit. "Sir, I am prepared to provide any additional information about the incident that you require." Peterson smiled slightly. "What I require, Petty Officer Chen, is for you to understand what you accomplished out there. You faced a situation that would have broken many experienced sailors, and you responded with exactly the kind of leadership we want to see in Navy SEALs. You turned what could have been a career-ending incident into a demonstration of why you belong in this program." He continued, "Riley's behavior was unacceptable and has been dealt with appropriately. But your response showed that you have the judgment and mental toughness that we're looking for in special operations personnel. I wanted you to hear that directly from me." Sarah felt a surge of emotion but maintained her professional composure. "Thank you, sir. I am committed to completing this training and serving with honor." 3 weeks later, Sarah stood on the beach at Coronado as Hell Week began, alongside 21 other candidates who had survived the program to that point. The incident with Riley had become a defining moment, not just for her, but for the entire concept of women in special operations. She had faced the ultimate test of her mental toughness and professional judgment under the most challenging circumstances possible. Instead of being broken by harassment and assault, she had demonstrated the kind of leadership that SEALs were expected to provide in combat situations. As the Hell Week instructors began their opening remarks, Sarah thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. From a small town in Oregon to the beaches of Coronado, she had overcome every obstacle through preparation, determination, and unwavering commitment to her goals. The road ahead was still challenging, but Sarah knew she belonged here. She had proven it to herself, to her instructors, and to everyone who would follow in her footsteps. The brass bell that had claimed so many candidates would not claim her.